Unit 8. If it smells like fish, forget it. Part 3. Listening. Page 109.
Help anybody out there now?
Now we're going to learn something that every red-blooded American should know: how to shop for fresh fish. If you're a strict vegetarian, listen anyway, and you can pass the information on to your friends. Our classroom is a seafood stall called Pike Place Fish at the Pike Place Market near Seattle's harbor. A lot of customers come here not so much for the food, but for the show. The fishmongers chant every order and toss trout and salmon to each other like footballs.
We need a hallway behind you here now. I got a back jack.
Our teachers are a local chef named Brian Poor and the stall's manager, John Peterson. And as Poor says, never trust the fish man who looks you deep in the eyes and says, "Of course, all these fish came in just this morning." He says you should inspect the fish yourself following these simple tips.
And what I do is, first of all, go into it and try to see if there's any blood remaining in the backbone area.
I don't want blood on the backbone.
You do want blood.
And John, why do I want blood inside? It's sort of yucky.
Blood turns brown. If it's got red blood inside of it, it's not old.
So red blood means it's...
You
really
can wash it
pretty
away.
fresh.
You know, when it turns brown, you can wash it away so people can't see. But that's about it.
Okay.
It's a good indicator.
Okay, so you also say, look at the belly shape. You said this salmon has a nice belly shape. What does that mean?
Well, like John alluded to, you notice that it looks like he has just been slitted and cleaned. The belly actually, it looks like it's reattaching itself as opposed to one that's flat. And it has the shape of as though it still has the viscera inside.
Oh, so if it looks a little flattened out, now John, you're showing me.
That fish is about 1.5 days older than the one up here.
And so we're seeing that the belly is starting to sort of curl in on itself.
Actually, what it's doing is flattening out right up here in the mid part of the belly. It's flattening out instead of still holding its shape as though,
Nice,
as he
round
said,
and
it
plump.
still had the viscera in it.
You know, now sometimes I go into a fish store or a fish counter at the supermarket and I pick up the fish and it's slimy and I think, ugh.
You should go hooray.
Yeah.
You want to...
The melting ice alone will remove the slime. The melting ice alone will remove the slime from the fish. The slime is their clothing. It insulates them when they're in the water so they don't die of exposure.
So Brian,
they have to have it.
The more slime, the better.
The more slime, the better.
Okay, what about scales? Sometimes people say you should... Any clue?
The more they are handled, the more scales they lose.
And so this fish right here looks patchy.
Mm-hmm. He's been handled more.
And John, the fish man, what about eyes? Do eyes give us some sort of clue about fish?
If the fish hasn't been iced up, they can.
Somebody told me once, never get a cloudy-eyed fish.
Yes and no. I'll show you something like on this one right here. That eye's looking real good right there. The eye that's up. The eye that's on the ice is clouded.
Oh. But
the ice clouds their eyes.
But still, it's a real nice fresh fish.
Yeah.
I think
it's a good one. It can be a good one. I have seen fish that were completely spoiled with glassy clear eyes because they had never seen ice. They were in the trunk of a fisherman's car.
Oh, okay. So eyes are not a great indicator. What about, though, a fisherman once said, open the gill, which I'm now doing with my thumb, and make sure it looks nice and bloody inside the gills.
Yeah.
The Atlantics, these are a farm-raised fish, excellent quality fish. They'll come in with the gills intact, but typically you won't see gills in head and gutted fish.
Okay, so if the fish we're looking at has gills in it, we want it to be nice and red and bloody.
Once again, bloody is better.
Not brown.
Not brown, not pale, and they pale very quickly in the gill area, and this is typically why they are cut out before you get them.
Brian Poor, do you ever get fish from a supplier? You're at the restaurant, you get a big fish order in, and you go, you sniff and you think, ugh, these fish are not good.
What I try to do is I'll stand here and go, and I notice no smell here, so I know this is a quality operation, because if you go into an environment and you smell fish, then you get out, because typically if the environment smells like fish, the handling of the fish, their practices are not good, don't even bother, move on.
So if the fish smells like a fish, forget it.
Fish, Exactly. Fresh fish don't smell.
All right.
Thanks again, man.
Okay.
Tell us your name again.
John Peterson.
Are you the owner?
No, I'm the manager.
And it's called?
Pike Place Fish.
And Brian Poor.
From Chandler's Crab House.
Thanks a lot.
Unit 10, Living Through Divorce. Section 3, Listening. Page 142.
Betsy, tell me your full name, please.
Betsy Allison Walter.
Betsy Allison Walter, and you're 8 years old?
Almost 9.
And you live in Manhattan?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in our studio in New York. I appreciate you taking some time to come in and telling us this story. You wrote a letter to the mayor of New York, Mayor Koch.
Right.
Tell me about that, please.
Well, I wrote to him because my parents are getting divorced, and I really don't know who to turn to. And I just told him that my parents are getting divorced, and my dad is with somebody else, and I was just getting used to something, and now this, and it's really kind of hard on me, and I'd like an opinion.
Why did you write to Mayor Koch?
Because he's somebody who I've thought he's very good to us, I guess, because he's the mayor and he knows a lot of things, and I thought he would know about this, too.
Yeah. Did you get an answer back?
Yes.
What'd he say?
It's very short. Thank you for the letter. I was saddened to learn of the difficult times you are experiencing now. It is important for you to share your feelings and thoughts with someone during this time. I wish there was an easy solution to these problems, but there is not. Please remember that you are loved and that people care about you. All the best. Sincerely, Edward Koch.
Was that reassuring to you in a way?
No?
No? Did you have any thought in your mind that perhaps he could actually do something about it? For example, call your father and get your mom and dad back together?
No.
No, you just wanted some advice.
But see, I tried it sometimes, because I had a dance recital one day, and I invited them both, but I wanted them to sit next to each other, but they didn't.
Yeah. What other advice have you been able to come across, to find?
Well, the guidance counselor, she said that a lot of kids have the same problems. Say there are 400 in school, and 300 of them have the same problem.
Sure. You know, most people you talk with will have had parents who were divorced.
Oh.
Yeah, most people. It's kind of a sad thing, but most people get through it all right, too. That's my advice for you.
Thank you.
You wrote another letter to somebody who had written a book called The Boys and Girls Book of Divorce?
Yes.
A psychologist?
Mm-hmm.
And what did that person tell you?
Well, he said that I should try another of his books to find out help.
Oh, he wanted you to go out and buy his book. Did you?
Well, we had the one he recommended.
And how did that go? What did you think of that one?
Well, the problem is he puts things in a way that I can't really quite get it through me, that I already know, and I want some real advice that my questions really are, not just answers that people keep telling me over and over again.
Can you give me an example, Betsy?
Why'd they get divorced? What happened?
Do you think that parents sometimes don't think children are old enough to understand or can't handle it, and so will hide some information?
Yes.
Not that they have to say everything, but you think there ought to be a little bit more sharing of the information.
Yeah, that's what my mom said.
Yeah. And in terms of their own divorce, do you understand it better now?
No.
No? Why? What still don't you understand about that?
Well, why did they have to go off and do it? And, 'cause see, the most painful part is when I saw my dad packing up, and I really don't understand because, it's hard because they won't tell me what happened to them, and I really want them back together, and I don't understand why they can't.
Yeah. What do you think you've learned from this? Do you think if somebody else in school, for example, told you that their parents were getting divorced, how do you think you could advise them?
Well, I wrote a book, and I think I would say the same information that I said.
You wrote a very small book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have it there?
Mm-hmm.
Could you read some of it for me, please?
All right. Let me get it. It's called A Book About Divorce. Should I read the whole book? It's short.
Sure.
It's not your fault when your parents get divorced. Why does it have to be you? Because Mommy and Daddy don't love each other anymore. Remember, it's okay to be sad and cry. Tell someone about your feelings. That's it.
That's nice. Listen, Betsy, thank you for talking with us. I appreciate it, and I wish you the best. I hope things go well for you.
Thank you.
And maybe this is the beginning of a writing experience for you, and you can grow up to be a writer.
I don't want to, but I want to write like one book that would make it, but not a whole series, you know.
You just want to write a book and make a lot of money.
No, not money, just famous.
Okay. Okay, Betsy, thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night.
The Adobe Bookshop in San Francisco has been converted into a rainbow of books. All 20,000 some odd used books in the store have been arranged on the shelves by color. All the red spines grouped together, blending into orange, yellow, and on through the spectrum. It's the visual dream of Chris Cobb, a 34-year-old artist. He describes what it's like when you walk into the bookshop.
There are two skylights in the room, and what happens in the daytime is that natural light just makes one wall glow in this kind of unearthly way. The spectrum begins with red, and you notice that immediately when you walk in, and it almost like emits this radiant glow, and the whole color spectrum shifts as you walk down the aisle. It's really something.
When you came up with the idea, what was it that inspired this? What vision was this that you had?
I do a lot of different kinds of work with different media, and the one principle I use is I try to take something very ordinary and kind of subvert it or change its system a little bit to reveal something kind of that you would never see otherwise. And this was kind of an extension of that.
And nobody's getting confused looking for a book maybe by, subject or title or author or something?
Actually, what's happened is people have been saying it's something really magical and they would never see it anywhere, and it makes the process of looking for used books a lot funner.
Well, apart from the aesthetics of looking around and seeing this wonderful rainbow effect, is there one favorite color discovery that you've made?
A color discovery that I made probably that's the strangest to me is that we ended up with a big stack of hot pink books, and I had this strange moment where I had no idea where they would belong. And we had to work to try to insert them into the spectrum somewhere because the hot pink seemed like kind of out of the normal spectrum.
So where did it end up?
We had also a stack of lavender, and we put it at the end of blue, and then it blended slowly into brown and then into white.
Now, you didn't do this reorganization all by yourself. It sounds like you had a team of happy workers helping you out. How'd you do it?
That's absolutely right, because it really came down to having a dedicated group of about 15 or 16 people. We came in there at 10 o'clock at night, and then we worked all night, and we just tore the place apart. It was incredible. There were books everywhere, stacks like 3 and 4 feet high, and they worked so hard.
And how long did it take?
It took 10 hours.
10 hours. For 20,000 books, not too bad.
It was definitely a managerial task, and we definitely had to take breaks, and there were a few points, like I'll say about 4:30 in the morning, when everybody was fatigued and it was looking really ugly. There were books everywhere, and people were getting tired and knocking over giant stacks of books and getting upset. Some people, they were about to cry, and it was just like, I knew right then I needed to get everyone to slow down. I turned the music off. I said, look, everybody needs to take breaks. We need to go out one at a time, get air, and when we come back, we're just going to go ahead and try to finish this off.
Wow, it sounds like it turned into a little bit of an ordeal.
I think that was the moment that crystallized the whole project for me, actually, was the moment of high, intense stress. Because I kind of always felt there are two kinds of people in the world. There's stackers and then there's spreaders. And it's great when you get a bunch of stackers together, but if you mix the stackers and spreaders, it's just chaos.
Chris Cobb, thanks so much.
And thank you.
Chris Cobb, creator of the art installation that arranged all the used books at San Francisco's Adobe Bookshop by color. The books are set to be returned to their multicolored jumble on December 10th. You can see photos of the installation at our website, npr.org.
Unit 6, The Bible Hospital, Section 3, Listening, page 80.
Patience is a virtue for Patrick Kirby, who owns the Bible Hospital in Alexandria, Virginia. He's a restorer of books, and he does much of the work by hand. He restores books mostly for libraries, but about 20% of his work is rebinding private books, mainly Bibles. His shop has rolls of imitation leather for the covers, gold and silver foil for stamping titles and names, tubs of glue, and a huge paper cutter. Most of the Bibles he restores are small ones meant to be carried to church. He says he only gets about 15 of the large leather-bound family Bibles per year.
This one has to be resewed, completely resewed.
So you'll have to put the pages back together.
Right.
Where it's fallen apart. Well, now, in that place where it's all worn off, where the tulle leather cover and the spine are split, and there's this piece of worn-looking leather, what are you going to do?
It'll be a new piece of leather. This piece of leather here will be lifted off the board here, pulled back about an inch or so. Then we'll reinsert a new piece of leather in here. We'll glue that back down, and then we'll take the spine and paste that over the new spine.
What about these little hand Bibles? Bibles are inexpensive. You can get them everywhere.
Yeah.
Why do people want to
Sentimental.
Yeah.
Sentimental value.
Do they tell you about them when they bring them into you? So
you can look in them and see the date that was given it. Somebody gave it to them. That was given to them by when they were baptized or confirmation or something like that. Yeah.
What are the books that individuals bring into you besides the Bible? What is the precious book that comes in here?
The cookbook.
The cookbook?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this one, which is sitting right in front of me, is a 60s edition of The Joy of Cooking. I guess, of course, cookbooks are in dangerous places, kitchens.
They bring them in, and I say to them, well, you might be able to get a new cookbook for cheaper than what you'll pay to have this done. And they'll say, well, they just don't have the information, and the new ones like the old ones. Plus, they have all the little notes and everything in them.
And all the little stains I see in this cookbook. They're little checks by whoever owns this cookbook has made checks by recipes that they like or tips that they think are important. And there's a nice spot right on cheese nut and bread loaf. How long have you been doing this?
Well, my dad, he passed away in '69, and I took over then.
So how long has the Kirby family been in the book binding business?
He started it in 1939, and he did everything by hand. I mean, he didn't. Today I have a few machines here that he didn't have.
But it looks to me like a lot of this equipment is at least as old as you are.
Yes. I know that the stamper and the cutter and the little vice backer here, they're older than I am.
And did they all come from your dad's shop?
Yeah.
So you still do a lot of the things in the old way as well?
Yes, except for sewing a book. We use a machine to sew.
And he did it by hand?
Yeah. Hand sewing would take about an hour, whereas if you sewed it on a machine, it'd take about less than 5 minutes. Plus, it probably does a better job, too.
So are you going to pass this on to the next Kirby in line?
My children aren't really interested in this business. I guess once I'm gone, I don't know what will happen. Maybe I'll just sell the business someday and retire.
Patrick Kirby of the Bible Hospital. It's All Things Considered.
Unit 2, A Boys' Shelter for Street People. Section 3, Listening, page 14.
It was about 2 years ago on a cold night in December when 11-year-old Trevor Farrell first realized that there were people living out on the streets of Philadelphia, just 12 miles from his nice, comfortable suburban home. Trevor saw a news report about the city's homeless. He ran to tell his parents about this startling discovery. Trevor wanted to do something right away, that night. He wanted his mother and father to take him into the city so he could help someone. His amazed parents resisted the idea at first, but then relented, thinking it would be a good lesson for their impressionable son. They never expected he would want to do it again. They didn't realize what else Trevor would learn that night.
I saw a man living on the street when we got into the city, and I brought in a blanket and pillow that night, and I gave it to the man, and he looked really comfortable and said, "God bless you," and it made me feel really good.
It felt so good that Trevor went back the next night, and the next, and the next. Pretty soon his family ran out of pillows and blankets and old clothes, so they put an ad in a local paper for donations. The paper decided to find out what Trevor and his family were up to, so they interviewed him, and his story was published. Donations poured in, people volunteered to help. Someone contributed a van, so they started giving out free food as well. And now there is a permanent shelter for the homeless in Philadelphia, dubbed Trevor's Place by the people who stay there. Trevor's story is the subject of a book, Trevor's Place, written by his parents, Frank and Janet Farrell. Trevor's initial act of kindness has become a full-time commitment, and Trevor has become close friends with many of the people he met on the streets.
There's Chico, Ralph, Big Joe. There's a lot.
Well, who are the street people? What's their background? How did they get to be living in the street?
Well, some of them lost their jobs. Some of them have mental problems. Some of them drink. And all it takes is for somebody to be out in the streets for 2 or 3 days, and then you start looking dirty. And it's really hard. My dad and I tried staying on the street one night, and we couldn't even try it. We couldn't take it. We had to leave.
How long did you try, Frank?
Oh, for about 3 or 4 hours, and then we gave up. We had a home to go back to, and we had the shelter of our car, and you'd think we would have been able to. I'm not too proud of that. Are you, Trev, that we couldn't do it? The streets are cold, filthy. How cold was it, Trevor? It was about
Not
30.
that cold.
No, it was about 38 degrees or something, and I thought, well, that's not going to be so bad. Well, it was so bad, and we had sleeping bags with us, and we thought, well, we'd be able to stand it. But the sidewalk's awfully hard. You see raw sewage here and there. It's not easy, and those people that spend their lives out there, I don't know how they do it.
And yet you go down there frequently, all the time. At one point, I think you were going every night.
Yes, the vans now, it's a big operation. The vans go in every night serving homeless people food that's generously donated by fast food chains, and there are volunteer coordinators of the effort, individual families. There are over 100 families in the Philadelphia area that cook on a regular basis, and food is taken in and given freely, unconditionally to people that are on the streets and obviously have a need for someone, so much more of a need for the caring that's exchanged than really the food, I guess.
What kind of reaction do you get from the street people when you go down there and start giving things away? I mean, was it different when you began? Has it changed over the course of time, or do you get a variety of reactions?
We get a lot of different reactions. A lot of them, they're all good, though. Like, they all accept the food nice. Some of them might not accept the food, but after a while, we'll wear them down. They'll accept the food.
What do you mean wear them down?
Like, they'll say no, but every night we'd ask them. They'd say okay. And
Eventually they say yeah. And initially, most of them say yes because it's a youngster that's offering it to them and not someone towering over them and looking down on them and saying, what are you doing out here? You ought to get a job. Kids they're not judgmental, and they're not threatening. They're just doing it because of a heartfelt need to want to reach out to somebody.
Trevor, this must have changed your life completely.
Yeah, well, I'm allowed, but I'm not able to play with my friends as much and have as much fun as I used to. But it's all worth it, helping the homeless people on the streets and seeing how grateful they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, how has it changed you?
Well, I know that I've learned that people may look scary, but they're really nice, and to treat people not just because of what they look like or anything.
So you were scared when you first went down there?
The first night, yes, but now I know there's nothing to be afraid of.
Trevor Farrell and his father Frank Farrell, who along with Trevor's mother Janet and with the help of Edward Waken, has written a book about his son's campaign for the homeless called Trevor's Place. Proceeds from the book are being donated to Trevor's campaign.
Unit 4, Attached to Crime, Section 3, Listening, page 46.
Only a few years ago, school children packed lunch boxes. Now more and more of them are packing weapons. We read about it every day. Crisis of violence, a menace to childhood, says the Washington Post. Violence hits 1 in 4 students, reports the New York Times. And Newsweek declares that our children are growing up scared. Surely some communities have escaped the trend, but too many have not. NPR's Lynn Neary visited a high school in Virginia and has this report.
Arlington's Wakefield High School is not necessarily a typical American public school. It is probably more diverse, both ethnically and economically, than most schools. 36% of the school is Hispanic, 15% Asian, 24% black, and 23% white. Many of the students would describe themselves as middle class or working class. Many are poor. It is a suburban school set in a neighborhood of small, attractive, single-family homes. But Washington, D.C. is just a short drive away. We sat down the other day with a small group of Wakefield students. These are responsible and committed kids who take part in the school's conflict resolution program. They've been trained as mediators who can step into a dispute and help diffuse it before it gets out of control. The school principal asked us to use only first names, and we agreed. All the students, with one exception, had concrete examples of how crime has affected their lives.
It does affect me because I have a little brother, and I'm scared that he's getting on drugs or something because of his friends.
It affects me hearing about guys shooting each other, and like in my neighborhood it's becoming like that kind of stuff now. Guys walking around with knives, making up gangs and stuff like that.
I live in a nice, relatively nice neighborhood, but still my family has 2 people that have had sons or daughters murdered, and there's one whose son was convicted of murder.
Not too long ago, around where I live, there were 2 people murdered, and then there was someone that lived next door to me. They were, involved in a drive-by. So, I mean, when I see that, and, I'm thinking, this is my neighborhood, I mean, I could easily have been on that street.
Well, there was somebody raped right at the corner of my street. There was a girl raped not too far, a couple blocks away. And so I personally feel like, okay, I can walk outside, but my family's real against it.
See, I live in a valley, so it's Green Valley. It's like one of the worst places to live. And I lived there for like 6 years, and nothing had happened to my family personally. Well, once to my mom. She got robbed, but that's because you have to expect it there.
For someone of another generation, that calm acceptance of crime as a fact of life was chilling. It was a theme heard over and over again.
You see stuff on the news where, like, big, humongous racial type tension things, and I mean, you think, wow, that's really bad, but I mean, there's other things that are considered a norm.
Chad is an 18-year-old senior.
It's like when I go to a party, I mean, almost all the time there's some kind of fight that starts out. So, I mean, or like, something that involves a weapon or something. So, I mean, a lot of it's got to be a norm, a normal type thing.
A weapon as in, you go to a party and almost always somebody, pulls a knife?
Yeah, somebody pulls a knife, pulls a gun. I mean, they're either like, they're drunk or they're, they're just not thinking. So, I mean, I almost, I sort of expect it to happen.
What happens at a party when someone pulls out a gun?
Most of the time, everybody runs.
Weapons at parties and on the street may be commonplace, but what about at school? Wakefield, these kids insist, is less violent now than it was a few years ago. A strong security program is partly responsible for the improvement. The kids know that, but they also resent some of the security measures. Still, they say they feel safe at Wakefield, and they're glad the school has not installed metal detectors. But they know that banned items, like beepers and some weapons, are in the school. Casson is a 19-year-old senior.
I still even see another guy back me up in the bathroom, and put a knife up my throat. I said, hey man, I'm not playing, all right? And then he leave me. But I don't make things like that bother me because I don't carry any weapons or anything because I don't need it.
A lot of kids, these students say, are not able to protect themselves, so they seek safety in numbers. And that, says 16-year-old Kuhn, is why there are a lot of gangs.
And everybody feel like I'm in danger because of that gang, so they join a gang, so there's another gang, you know? And it all builds up, but it's all started out with maybe a couple people who just feel like, oh, let's dress alike, it's cool that way, you know? And then all of a sudden, they go, oh, let's develop a name, and then they develop a name. Oh, let's get some more people, and then more people join, and then they go, oh, let's have certain rules to go by, you know, like the Boy Scouts or whatever. Then they go by certain rules, and if you can't follow that, you can't be in that group. And then it goes on like that.
The solutions these kids suggest are the same ones you hear from adults: more parental involvement, fewer guns, stiffer penalties for crime. But the kids don't hold out much hope that anything's going to change soon. The reality of crime, says 18-year-old Heather, will be inextricably entwined with their memories of youth.
Now that we've grown up with it, it's just like growing up in a neighborhood. You get attached to it. We're attached to crime. I mean, you can't get away from it. So what do? You can't run. And a lot of people, you can't run, they join them. I mean, that's basically how it is.
Some do want to run. Casson, who feels pressured by the gangs in his neighborhood, wishes he could move.
I do, because my neighborhood is getting worse every day. I would rather live out in the country, you know, where there's less people and less gangs and stuff like that. I think it would be better.
Do you ever worry that you're going to get killed, Casson?
I know that I'm going to die some way, somehow, so I don't worry about it. No. Just sometimes I do think about it, no. Just got to live with what you have.
But others say you can't escape it. There is no place where you can get away from crime completely. So there is that acceptance, more than acceptance really, an insistence that crime will not stop them from living their lives. And 16-year-old Kuhn, who says she lives in the worst neighborhood in the area, is probably the most defiant.
I just don't think that it'll come to me, crimes or whatever come to me, because, I don't know, I just feel like it's not going to happen to me, so...
It's really interesting to hear what you're saying, because you're saying it doesn't affect me, but
I don't let
it's
it
all
affect
around
me.
you, I guess, is what you're saying at the same time.
Yeah, I don't let it affect me, because if I keep sitting home and worry about it, then I'll probably sit home the whole rest of my life and not go out of my house.
At one point during our discussion, we could hear a walkie-talkie in the hall. It was the security guards checking up on some suspicious-looking kids hanging out near the school. But nothing ever came of it, and no one gave it a second thought. It was just a routine event in a school with a student body that probably can't imagine a time when school felt safe without security guards.
Unit 11. Meet you on the air. Section 3. Listening. Page 154.
It's not just another Saturday night, it is Susan Block's date night. And I'm
a
Susan
call-in
Block,
show for
your
singles, every Saturday night on Los Angeles radio station KIEV. People meet on the air, they chat, and if they want, they write to each other's box number. Susan Block plays matchmaker.
Let's get personal with John. Hi there, John.
Yeah, hello, how are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Oh, fine. I had a wonderful night tonight. Had guests over, played the piano, had a lot of fun. Oh, great.
I hear the piano.
Oh, yeah, it's me. More than the greatest love the world has known. This is the love I'll give to Linda alone.
Linda, where are you? CJ, get Linda on the line. She'll have to hear how she's being serenaded to.
Serenaded, yeah.
Okay, Linda?
Yes?
How did you like that serenade?
Oh, that was very nice.
Well, here's John. He'd like to talk to you.
Okay.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. What do you like to do?
I like to discover new things, invent new ideas, go to the beach, enjoy.
The show's host is a self-confessed personal ad voyeur. She wrote a book on how to play the personals and promoted it on the talk show circuit.
And sometimes what I do with a call-in show is somebody would call in and say it was Linda, and I would make up a personal for Linda. And she would express herself and then get off the air. And then maybe Bob would call in and say, hey, that Linda, she sounded great. How can I meet her? And I would just feel terrible that I couldn't match up poor Bob and poor Linda, who were two single people who needed each other. And I thought, I'm going to do a show like this myself. I'm going to match people up on the air. And that's how Date Night started.
The banter is that of a singles bar. What kind of work do you do? What movies have you seen? And do you like Chinese food?
What are your favorites? Sizzling chicken and hot and sour soup and all kinds of great stuff.
I bet there's some other sizzling things you can think of to do.
Oh, yes, yes.
As long as we can pick and choose and share plates and
Definitely.
share a lot of other things, too.
But you got to use chopsticks.
Oh, I do all the time.
Good.
One of the things you do on the show is you have personal ads.
Yes, these are little messages that people make up. They can be anywhere from 15 seconds to a minute long, and they're like the personals in the paper, except they're audio version. And you not only get information about people, you get a sense of their personality through their voice. And the best ones have music in the background to enhance the personality. Now here's Robert, number 603.
Hi, I'm Robert. And I'm 43 years old, 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, and I'm in excellent LA condition. I'm a passionate eccentric, and I am definitely an acquired taste. Some women have found me very beautiful.
I don't like the bland ads that I see in the paper. I don't like when everybody sounds like another single white female, professional, attractive, articulate, walks on the beach, sensuous, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? I mean, it's all the same. Now, when people call in to put ads on my show, I tell them, look, I want you to be yourself. I mean, the part of you that is different. I don't care how bland a person they may seem to be on the outside. They'll sound outrageous on a personal.
I'm 37, and I look okay. I don't believe I've ever embarrassed anybody I went out with. I'm looking for somebody who's looking for somebody, I guess. I guess that says it. Just looking for somebody that's looking for somebody. And my name's Annie. That's all.
That is as personal as we can get tonight, folks. This is Susan Block's Date Night. Tune in next week, same time, same station, for another Saturday night on Date Night.
Unit 5. Their old lifestyle is worth keeping. Section 3. Listening. Page 68.
Turns out many people who move to this country exercise less, eat more unhealthy food, and gain weight. That according to a study in this week's Journal of the American Medical Association. Here's NPR's Patricia Naiman.
Dr. Meeta Sangvi Goyal is an internist at Northwestern University. Her interest in looking at the link between migration to the U.S. and weight gain came from her own personal experience. Sangvi Goyal was born in this country, but her parents grew up in India.
A lot of what I look at from before are their wedding pictures, and they look fantastic. They're thin, they're happy, they look very healthy.
But over time, her parents, as well as her husband's parents, who also came from India, began to look more like Americans.
I see my parents and my in-laws driving to the supermarket, often eating out, maybe grabbing an ice cream at night or picking up a candy bar at the checkout aisle or whatever it might be. It was just striking, the differences that I would see between the family that I have here and the family that I have in India. And I hope I don't get myself into too much trouble with saying all this.
In India, for example, Sangvi Goyal's relatives walk a lot. They shop for fresh fruits and vegetables every day and prepare meals at home. It turns out her parents' experience is not unique. Sangvi Goyal and colleagues analyzed data for over 5,000 immigrants from all over the world. They looked at their date of arrival in the U.S. as well as health statistics from the government.
And the difference was such that if you had lived here for 15 years or more, you looked much more like a U.S.-born person. For the average 5'9" man, if you lived in the United States for 15 years or more, you are probably 11 pounds heavier than your recent immigrant counterpart who is of the same age, sex, race, ethnicity, education, and income level.
And the average woman is 9 pounds heavier. University of California nutritionist Marilyn Townsend knows the story well. She directs a statewide program which helps low-income immigrant families eat more healthfully, and it's not easy.
Foods that were specialty foods in their home countries are now very plentiful here. So it's a reward to have these foods that were hard to get.
U.S.-made soda, potato chips, and snack foods are a lot more expensive in other countries, and because they're viewed as luxuries, that notion seems to continue even once they come to live here. And ironically, Townsend says, what's given up is often the more healthy traditional foods. Take, for example, the tortilla.
In Mexico and many of the Latin American countries, the staple for the tortilla is the corn tortilla. It's made by grinding the corn, so we'd call it a whole grain product. The corn is soaked in a lye liquid, which contains calcium.
The tortilla is then cooked without fat or oil. In the U.S., however, the flour tortilla is more common, and many people switch from corn to flour.
The flour tortilla is very processed. It's not whole grain. And then it's made with a considerable amount of a fat source. So it might be lard, and there's no calcium.
Both Townsend and Dr. Sangvi Goyal say health experts can help control the epidemic of obesity in this country by convincing the newly arrived that much of their old lifestyle is worth keeping. Patricia Naiman, NPR News.